New Terra, the only world in the sector with a hydrological cycle perfectly suited for human life. Before the conflict, this planet produced up to 40% of the foodstuffs for the Syndicate's outer colonies. Recognizing the sector's vulnerability, the Syndicate locked down the orbit. Monolithic Bastion-class defense platforms choked off every single transport corridor. The Imperial sector responded without hesitation. Long-range scouting echelons advanced to the upper edges of the atmosphere. The deployment of orbital minefields began. The first Imperial cargo convoys received an ultimatum, demanding an immediate change of course. A refusal to comply meant the automatic execution of the termination protocol. The Empire countered by sending its first assault wave of planetary transport ships. The Syndicate's defensive perimeter braced to repel the strike. Hundreds of thousands of sensors logged the enemy's approach past the critical threshold. Every single faction understood whoever yielded New Terra would doom their outer worlds to starvation. The first salvos from kinetic cannons punched straight through the hulls of the Vanguard fuel tankers. Open space filled with rapidly freezing clouds of technical fluids. Imperial shock troops received orders to break through. Regardless of the density of incoming fire, the automation systems of the Syndicate platforms operated at the absolute limit of their computational capacity. The orbit transformed into an impassable barrier of drifting wreckage. The second wave of the Imperial fleet consisted of Monarch-class heavy battleships. Their armor was engineered to withstand colossal stress, yet the Syndicate's kinetic slugs tore right through them. Capital ships perished by entire divisions, losing stabilization and entering steep terminal dives. The planet's gravitational field dragged the mangled hulls down to the surface. The impact of debris on such a scale triggered the first localized mega tsunamis. Hydroponic plantations across coastal zones were instantly buried under millions of tons of saltwater mud. The Syndicate maintained continuous fire on the descending landing craft. Every single Imperial vessel that slipped through meant thousands of troops deployed onto the surface. Several transports disintegrated mid-air, raining incandescent metal down upon the fields. Shockwaves from the impact of fallen supercruisers rattled the tectonic plates of the plains. Shipboard computers lost contact with command due to the dense shroud of rising dust. Yet, the torrent of Imperial drop pods seemed inexhaustible. The automated defense grids of the Syndicate began to overheat. Hundreds of escape pods from both factions drifted forgotten in low orbit. The Imperial flagship Tiberius made the tactical decision to sacrifice its starboard flank to secure a breakthrough. The enemy line fractured as one of the primary defense platforms lost its orbital stability. Hundreds of thousands of tons of burning steel plunged towards the equatorial agricultural complexes. The planet's atmosphere turned a sickly, dark gray from soot and smoke. Imperial heavy drop pods began their mass penetration into the lower atmospheric layers. The Syndicate lost control of space operations in Sector 4. The blockade was broken at the cost of a third of the Imperial assault fleet. The wall was shifting inexorably to the planet's surface. The surviving transports deployed millions of mechanized troops onto the plains of New Terra, driven by artificial downpours and shattered dams. The lowlands degraded into impassable mires. Wheeled and tracked armor bogged down in the thick mud, turning into stationary targets. The sole viable means of advancement became the heavy four-legged walking armored platforms. They were specifically engineered for hostile terrain. Their massive structural legs distributed weight effectively, allowing them to traverse kilometers of swampland. The Syndicate countered the advancing forces with the thunder of stationary artillery batteries. Shells tore the fertile topsoil apart, turning rich agricultural acreage into a barren wasteland. The Imperial walking tanks pushed forward stubbornly, returning heavy kinetic fire. Supply lines for both armies stretched thin over thousands of kilometers of flooded valleys. every landing zone converted into a heavily fortified defensive node. The Syndicate deployed its heaviest Goliath-class mobile defense platforms. Their multi-layered armor struggled to withstand the impacts of heavy Imperial calibers. The depleted planes echoed with the low hum of hundreds of heavy diesel and turbine drives. Streams of mud mingled with industrial lubricants flooded the trenches. Imperial gunships attempted to provide close air support, but the chaotic, storm-shattered climate blinded their targeting arrays. Syndicate anti-aircraft batteries maintained a dense curtain of flak, cutting off landing zones. Material losses were counted in thousands of units every 24 hours. Neither side intended to retreat, throwing their final operational reserves into the meat grinder. The planet's ecosystem began to break down irreversibly under the toxic saturation of unspent fuel components. Armies numbering in the millions collided across the endless plains, poised for total mutual annihilation. Human resources were expended without mercy. Syndicate divisions held their perimeters for weeks, blending into a faceless mass, sealed away inside airtight combat armor. Trench warfare stripped the soldiers of all individuality. There was no ideology, no mysticism, only a pragmatic command to purge the sector. Assault groups advanced blindly through thick curtains of ash and vaporized chemicals. The infantry's weaponry was simple and rugged, kinetic rifles capable of cycling through layers of grime. Orders were routed silently through encrypted neural networks. Devoid of words or human emotion, the wounded and dead were instantly replaced by fresh battalions arriving from orbit. The opposing lines were separated by hundreds of meters of scorched earth, carpeted in spent large-caliber casings. Syndicate counterattacks relied heavily on reinforced concrete bunkers and sustained machine gun suppression. Infantry swept forward in waves, swallowed up by the monochrome landscape of New Terra. Every meter gained cost the lives of hundreds of faceless combatants. Massive agrospheres and hydroponic domes were systematically dismantled for scrap metal to reinforce trench walls. The war for resources destroyed those very resources with mathematical precision. The soldiers had become mere components in a soulless, logistical machine of inertia. The final phase of the operation wiped out the remaining pockets of resistance across the central hemisphere. By the end of the 6th month, Operation Scorched Atmosphere was effectively over. The objective of this protracted and bloody campaign had been utterly annihilated by the war itself. The unique, once thriving agricultural ecosystem of New Terra had ceased to exist. The warring factions gained control of a scorched, lifeless rock. This permanently stripped the inhabited galaxy of its primary breadbasket. The operation was complete, leaving behind nothing but dust.